What if I told you one train could weaken United States sanctions, bypass the world's most heavily guarded sea routes, and quietly reshape global energy power? All without firing a single shot. No warships, no oceans, no Western permission, just steel tracks, and oil rolling straight into China. For decades, global oil has followed one simple rule. If it moves by sea, it moves under Western control. Tankers must pass through choke points like the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, and the Strait of Malacca, waterways patrolled or influenced by the United States Navy. This system gave Washington enormous power, not just over oil, but over entire economies. But now, something unprecedented is happening. A freight train loaded with thousands of barrels of Iranian crude is leaving an inland dry port. It cuts across empty deserts and vast Central Asian plains, crossing borders quietly and efficiently. About 12 to 15 days later, that same oil reaches China's western border in Xinjiang. At no point does it touch the ocean. At no point does it need a naval escort. And at no point can it be easily intercepted. This single journey breaks a rule that has defined global energy for generations. Because when oil stops floating and starts rolling, the balance of power begins to shift. And that's why this railway has made the United States extremely nervous. Not because of what it carries today, but because of what it makes possible tomorrow. So, in today's video, we're going to answer 3 critical questions. Why does this China-Iran railway matter so much right now? How does it change the energy security of both China and the Middle East? And under today's global tensions, can this railway really operate without interference? Let's start by understanding how the old system of oil control was built. To understand why this railway matters so much, we first need to understand the system it is challenging. For most people, power over oil sounds simple. You control oil fields, you control energy. But that's not how the modern world actually works. The United States doesn't control most of the world's oil reserves. Yet for decades, it has controlled how oil moves. Think of global oil trade like a highway system. It doesn't matter how many cars you own if someone else controls all the bridges. The United States built its power by controlling those bridges. Nearly all major oil exporting countries rely on a few narrow maritime choke points. The most important ones are the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, and the Strait of Malacca. These waterways are narrow, crowded, and impossible to avoid. If oil tankers are blocked there, entire countries feel the impact within weeks. The United States Navy maintains a permanent presence around these routes, especially near the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. This doesn't always mean direct confrontation. Often, the power lies in visibility. Every tanker knows it can be tracked. Every shipment knows it can be delayed, inspected, or stopped. But maritime control is only half the system. The second half is financial. Almost all global oil is priced and settled in United States dollars. This is known as the petrodollar system. Even when 2 non-American countries trade oil, the transaction usually passes through dollar-based banks. That gives Washington enormous leverage. If the United States declares a country sanctioned, it can pressure banks, insurers, and shipping companies to step away, instantly isolating that country from the global energy market. This is why sanctions work even without warships firing a single shot. For decades, this combination, naval dominance and dollar dominance, allowed the United States to shape global energy flows, reward allies, punish rivals, and enforce political outcomes far beyond its borders. But every system has a weakness. And for the first time in decades, that weakness is being tested. Not at sea, but on land. Now let's shift the focus to China, because no country feels the pressure of this system more than Beijing. China is the world's largest manufacturing power. It runs on energy the same way the human body runs on oxygen. Factories, cities, logistics, military operations, none of them function without a steady flow of oil. Here's the problem. China doesn't produce nearly enough oil on its own. Every year, China imports over 550 million tons of crude oil, and more than 70% of its total consumption comes from foreign suppliers. Almost half of that oil comes from the Middle East, thousands of kilometers away. And this is where the danger lies. About 80% of China's imported oil must pass through the Strait of Malacca, a narrow sea passage between Malaysia and Indonesia. At its narrowest point, it's only about 2.7 kilometers wide. This is not a wide ocean. It's a bottleneck. Chinese strategists have a name for this vulnerability, the Malacca dilemma. If a major conflict breaks out, or if tensions escalate between China and the United States, this single choke point becomes a pressure valve. Tankers can be delayed. Insurance costs can skyrocket. Shipping companies can simply refuse to sail, and China's energy lifeline begins to tighten. To put it simply, if Malacca is blocked, China feels it within weeks. This isn't theoretical. History has shown again and again that energy supply disruptions cause inflation, factory shutdowns, and social pressure faster than almost anything else. That's why China has spent decades searching for one solution above all others, a way to move energy without touching the ocean. Pipelines help, but they are limited. Road transport is inefficient. What China needed was a reliable, large-scale, land-based corridor that could bypass Western-controlled sea routes entirely. And that search is what led to one of the most ambitious rail projects of the 21st century. Enter the China-Iran Railway, not just a train track, but a carefully planned solution to a decades-old problem. This railway didn't appear overnight. It's the result of years of strategic thinking, diplomacy, and engineering, all aimed at creating a land-based alternative to risky maritime routes. The idea began to take shape with China's Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, which aimed to connect China with Eurasia through infrastructure projects, roads, ports, and railways. The China-Iran Railway became an important westward branch of this vision, linking Central Asia to the Middle East. Then, in January 2021, China and Iran signed a 25-year comprehensive cooperation agreement. Railway construction was explicitly mentioned as a key area of bilateral cooperation, alongside oil, natural gas, and infrastructure investment. But building a railway across multiple countries isn't simple. Engineers and planners had to overcome huge technical challenges. Track gauges differed from country to country, requiring careful adjustment. Border logistics had to be coordinated between China, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran, and infrastructure upgrades in Iran and Central Asia were needed to handle high-capacity freight trains. Step by step, progress was made. By June 2024, Iran completed the Caspian Sea railway segment. By May 2025, the entire route, stretching over 10,000 kilometers through Central Asia into Iran, was officially operational. Think about that for a moment. A single continuous rail line connecting China to the Persian Gulf, through deserts and plains, crossing multiple borders, all built with one strategic purpose: to create a safe, efficient, and reliable route for trade and energy. This railway isn't just about moving goods. It's about energy security, geopolitical independence, and reshaping global trade. And as we'll see next, it's already proving that it can deliver oil faster, safer, and more reliably than maritime routes ever could.